Hey everyone, today we'll take a look at the job market, robotics, and the stock market. But first, let's jump to the year 2030.
Well, I got fired. I didn't like the job anyway, but try saving for a Ferrari on universal basic income.
Fired. Nemo spent his whole childhood here with me at the office, and now he's scared to come to our house because we have a tomcat.
As of tomorrow, I no longer have to get up for work. You'll do it for me, right? All right then, I'm off to go duck hunting.
Oh, hey, handsome. I'm already saving up for you from my universal income, and I can't wait to have you. The women next door will be so jealous when you're taking out my trash. I need you.
Okay, let's take a look at the job market. But seriously, what if AI gets my Charlie fired? Who's gonna, provide for me?
When will AI start firing us? That's the wrong question. AI is already replacing us, but it's happening gradually and subtly for now. Jobs involving repetitive tasks, predictable patterns, or large-scale data processing are already slowly coming under threat. Look at jobs like translators, journalists, online teachers, marketers, and others. The question then should be, what will the acceleration of this process look like? Let's start, for instance, with programmers, a role I pretended to be for 20 years. In that job, I often felt like an electronic slave: study, code, or fix, ideally manage to test, and finally deploy, over and over again. Occasionally, the boredom was indeed broken by some disaster, but as a colleague used to say, nobody died. So it always somehow worked out in the end. Notice the emphasis placed on coding in AI development. Programming is repetitive and pattern-based. It's structured and logical, and we have tons of training data. That's exactly what AI loves. What's more, programmers are always asking for raises. Some of them are, judging by myself, quite lazy. They call bugs software features. They'd prefer to code from tropical islands, and after X years of programming, some even go a little crazy. For me, this all points to a high probability of a productivity explosion in the future, and not only in this sector. On an evolutionary development scale, I believe the human programmer will be replaced by a highly intelligent individual whose knowledge and experience are more geared towards achieving the final goal, rather than just knowing the means previously required to reach that goal. That makes the typical opinion of some of my former colleagues even more surprising to me. They say, well, I tried using GPT-4 for programming, and sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. I think there's no rush to adapt. From my perspective, good luck with that. But for the sake of balance, I must add that shortly after writing this Programmer's Last Will and Testament, I read a prediction from Bill Gates, who, on the contrary, reportedly claims that professions like programmers, energy experts, and biologists will survive the onset of AI. But my stubbornness still won't let me yield. I'm still convinced that this will mainly apply to those who catch on to the rise of AI in time. The next 2 minutes or so are mainly for the programmers, so things might get a bit technical and boring. I'm talking about those programmers who still mainly use GPT as an advisor on what to get their wife for Valentine's Day. That is, if they happen to remember Valentine's Day in the first place. And I must add, due to a lack of my own enthusiasm, I haven't even tested all the tools I'm about to mention myself. Instead, I'm relying on reports from my nephews who, at their company, recently said goodbye to another programmer and subscribed to GPT-5 Pro. So let's get on with it and get it over with. Feel free to skip ahead the next 2 minutes if this isn't for you. In the field of AI for programming, we see three main streams today that complement each other but solve different types of tasks. First stream, the digital Olympians. A leading example is highly specialized competitive systems, like AlphaCode 2 from Google DeepMind. It's not an assistant for daily work, but rather a digital athlete trained for a single, very narrow discipline. By massively generating and testing code variants, AlphaCode 2 reaches about the 85th percentile on Codeforces, roughly between expert and candidate master. Second stream, the versatile assistants. For everyday work, GitHub Copilot continues to dominate thanks to deep IDE/GitHub integration, and now a coding agent that can take a task/issue, draft changes, run tests, and prepare a pull request in the background. Historically, this category was kick-started by OpenAI's Codex, the original model behind early Copilot. Modern Copilot runs on multiple frontier models. Alongside strong rivals like Cursor and JetBrains AI, Claude Code has emerged as a terminal-first, repo-aware agent that reads your tree, edits files, and runs commands like a practical teammate rather than a passive autocomplete. For a powerful free option, Gemini Code Assist offers high daily limits across Visual Studio Code and JetBrains. Third stream, the architects and analysts. Newest generation foundation models, GPT-5 Pro, Gemini 2.5 Pro, and Anthropic's Claude family, push complex reasoning for code understanding, refactors, and design decisions, especially when paired with project-wide indexing and tooling. In practice, humans still do the final review, but these models now plan multi-step changes and surface non-obvious bugs with far greater reliability than prior generations. It's important to add that these streams overlap. Copilot now supports multiple frontier models, including Gemini 2.5 Pro for paid tiers, and agentic systems like Claude Code rely on such models under the hood while orchestrating tools and tests. Meanwhile, a fast-rising China stack is maturing. Alibaba's open-source Quencoder line, Qwen 2.5/3 Coder, ByteDance's Seed Coder, Baidu's Ernie 4.5, and Tencent's Hunyuan/CodeBuddy ID are all pushing competitive, multilingual coding models and tooling. End of our purely programming-focused segment. What about the work of accountants? We have clearly defined rules here, and the greatest creativity often lies in trying to mask as much profit as possible from the tax office. Why wouldn't government-mandated LLMs for accounting emerge in, say, just 5 to 10 years? That is, systems that would draw from automated sales records and other data to help businesses honestly declare all their taxes? Legal services are very expensive, right? Here too, we have relatively clear rules defined, and I'd guess AI will start helping lawyers with this work quite soon. I hope I'm wrong, but unfortunately, I don't believe enough new positions will be created quickly enough in the future to smoothly replace those that disappear. At the same time, I also fear that the winner-takes-all principle will increasingly apply, meaning that new AI-related roles will primarily demand only individuals with the highest abilities and intelligence. Certainly, there are many professions where AI won't be rushing in. Likely jobs like dentists, hairdressers, bricklayers, electricians, and similar trades. However, this brings us to robotics. I used to think the world of robots was for dreamers, people who watched too much Star Wars. With the arrival of GPT-4o, I somewhat reevaluated that. And when Elon Musk declared something like a robot in every family, it was clear to me he wasn't talking about a robot for mixing fish spread. I know Elon often has issues with timelines, but every now and then, he does deliver an interesting toy. With mass production, prices will drop, at least relatively. And if I'm not mistaken, a robot craze will follow, where we'll compete to see who has the bigger, better, or smaller one at home. Initially, there will certainly be minor misunderstandings between us, like when the robot returns from walking the dog without the dog and claims the dog's desire to chase the neighbor's cat was stronger than its own willpower, or when a hamster bolts while it's cleaning the aquarium and it can't coax it out of the new couch for a week. But we'll simply have to learn to forgive robots too. And for me, the question here is more about when rather than if. It's not hard to imagine that once robots mature and become more affordable, it will be us who are simply too expensive one day, and thus we'll be freed from even more strenuous professions. In Europe, we've built a comfortable social environment, so we probably can't quite imagine mass layoffs. I think the acceleration of layoffs could happen when the first major player in a given market segment effectively replaces a significant number of its workforce, thereby drastically cutting costs. The main goal of business is still profit, and excessive regulation likely won't change that. Maybe it will all just end with a happy ending. Some women will be at home, happily raising children, while we men will happily go duck hunting and hit the gym.
Oh, I'm not worried. I'm already in the market. It's super easy these days. You just buy an index and then it only goes up. Right?
In my first video on this channel, I tried to share my perspective on the current situation in the stock markets, so now I'll just be brief. Predicting the market with higher probability is usually almost impossible. But still, for me, we're in quite a paradoxical situation where, among other things, the AI hype is helping to inflate a rather significant stock bubble. And yet, we're underestimating the possibility that the real world might soon change dramatically beneath our feet. It's worth saying that the stock markets have been my passion long enough for me to know that I can easily be wrong. This is just my probabilistic view. The number of winners in the AI bubble will likely be quite concentrated, and their excessive profits will probably be properly taxed and used to patch up the destruction in the job market. Those who lose out in the AI bubble might eventually even exit the market, and investors' hyped-up expectations could turn into a nightmare for most involved. If I'm not mistaken, developed economies have had a decent problem since 2008, but we temporarily recovered by printing money. The logical arrival of inflation was then primarily kept in check by deflationary acceleration in the tech sector, that is, until 2022. I somehow have almost no doubt that with any larger crisis, we'll fire up the printers again. It will then be interesting to see how the deflationary pressures associated with the real onset of AI productivity will tame any subsequent round of inflation. I will attempt one prediction here, which I hope doesn't come true. A very important factor in AI is the number of brilliant individuals pushing its evolution forward. China has a population 4 times larger than the USA, meaning the hypothetical peak of the pyramid of the most intelligent people will also be 4 times higher, and their university system is no longer behind the USA. Central support for the AI sector in China is very generous. For me, the factors I've mentioned strongly favor China, and as a proponent of the free world, I will therefore hope for at least a tie in the AGI race. India might also surprise us in the future, and moreover, it's one of the few countries with favorable demographics. And now for a slightly more speculative part that I just can't resist. A few smart minds expect the gradual arrival of the singularity, that is, the achievement of AGI, which will bring a universal abundance of everything, and hopefully, for everyone. While I can imagine something like a singularity, I haven't the slightest clue about the timeline for achieving it. I'm actually quite looking forward to potential market volatility in the coming years. In the longer term, however, in the event of a potential approach to the singularity, I'm somewhat concerned about the opposite, because without volatility, markets aren't what we expect from an addiction. Extremely low market volatility as a result of universal abundance would, I think, mean significant withdrawal symptoms for many investors and traders. Anyone who can't wait for the weekend to end for the markets to open on Monday knows this feeling well. All that remains is to hope that we weather any turbulent period calmly, and then perhaps even survive heaven on earth.
Okay, I'm definitely cashing out some stock market profits. I mean, what if the hard times hit and there's a sale on designer bags? This is not investment advice, darlings. Anyway, thank you all for watching. In the 3rd episode of AI by 2030, we'll be looking at how, even today, we can try to live to be 122 years old, and how, in the future, we'll attempt to use AI to steal a few genes from the Greenland shark and live happily for 400 years. That's all from me for today, and now let's go back to the street.
Oh, my good people, please make me a happy, unemployed person. They actually make me think at work.